Riftbound. It's the not quite so new card game on the market. We've been playing it a lot over here on Off Meta Musings. I'm here today. I've got Chris here today, and I've got Charles here today. No, it's not Warcry related, so if you're not interested in that, I'm very sorry for you. But it is hobby and it is stuff that we've been doing. Will you see more Riftbound stuff on this channel? Maybe, probably, possibly. It depends on what I can do and like what kind of setups I want to get. At the time of me recording this, it's been about 3 months since Origins was released. Spiritforged Set 2 is just around the corner. I think like this week is being released. We've played in a whole bunch of Nexus Nights, which are like the very much local game store events. We've played in the pre-release events. We've played a whole bunch of Spiritforged online. We've played in some of the skirmishes, all this kind of thing. So we want to give our takes on the game, whether it's a game that you should be looking into, whether it's a game that we even enjoy. But let's introduce who we have here so far. I said already, we got Chris. Hello, Chris. How you doing?
Hello. Yeah, all good, all good. Happy to be here.
Hello, hello. And we got Charles.
Hi there. It's good to be here.
Hello, hello. Yes. If you're new to this channel, a little bit of our background. In terms of card games, I mainly come from a Yu-Gi-Oh background, but the last competitive card game I played was Legend of the Five Rings. I'm talking about the new, now discontinued one, as opposed to the old discontinued one. And I played that like for its entire lifespan. Charles, at the moment, is rolling into Gundam, right?
Yeah, playing the Gundam card game, dipping back into TCGs. Because played Legend of Five Rings as well. Before that, played a little bit of things like Magic and a few other little bits and pieces. But yeah, TCGs are one of those ones where you've got to invest and you need to be interested in the property. And that's
100%.
what I like about Gundam.
Yeah. And you're like an official judge and all that kind of stuff for Gundam, right?
Yeah.
And Chris, you also played L5R with us. What else did you play? You played a lot of Yu-Gi-Oh as well.
Mostly Yu-Gi-Oh was like growing up. Tried getting into Magic, but as Charles said, Magic, it feels like there's been so much release that it's a bit hard sometimes to just get into it.
You're right, actually.
Yeah, it's just bit of that, and obviously speak for all of us. We're all big League players, so the IP and League, the appeal made me want to get into it.
That is true. That is true. BT, British Telecom Tier 1.
Yes.
Right. No, yeah. So there is something to be said about getting into a card game from the first set, as opposed to something like Magic and Yu-Gi-Oh, where they've been going for decades now, and it's like, okay, well, where do I start with this? So that was the view that we took going into this. We've all played League for what, like, I don't know, 15 years, probably longer, since it was released. We like the IP, we like the story, we like the setting, so we thought, you know what, let's give this a try. So, talking about that, we've got Riftbound, which is the, like I said, not so new CCG that Riot Games have released. We're going to talk about I think the way we're going to structure this is we're going to talk about the pros and cons, what we like about the game, what we don't necessarily like about the game, and this is kind of going to be a wide-ranging-ish conversation about how Riot is handling the game as it is now. We're going to touch on things like balance and what they're going to try and do to address the balance. We're going to talk a little bit about how the game works, how it plays, just our general thoughts.
Just about the general gameplay, you've got simply three zones for each player. 2 of them are battlefield areas, and you both get to, normally in a best of 3 game, you have 3 battlefields and you choose which one you're going to play each round. So that adds a tactical level to your deck building. You want to use battlefields that will help you, maybe not help your opponent so much. And then you have your home area where you play everything to begin with. And there's a good interaction between your zones. Like, no zone is a dead area. The deck building, as we said, you have your legend, which determines your colors, a bit like in Magic, where you go, what colors am I going to build my deck out of? But it's more tied to an identity, a bit like Commander in Magic. So they've taken good examples from different games to combine into a game that works in the League of Legends IP space. And the mechanics for deck building and general gameplay work pretty well.
Yeah, so I think we're talking about the actual gameplay loop, right? And that's what keeps people playing the game. And as you've touched on, Charles, the idea is you're going to play your units, you're going to send them to battlefields, you want to capture battlefields by either them being empty or you shoving your opponent's units off of battlefields and killing them, and then your opponent is basically going to do the same thing in reverse. each time you gain battlefields, you gain points, and it's rinse and repeat. And that ultimately is the gameplay loop, and everything else fits into there. I think where they've really succeeded is in that core gameplay mechanic, just by virtue of there being things that you have to fight over, as opposed to just, oh, let's take Magic, for example. Here's a bunch of guys, and I got to run over your guys, and then once I run over all of your guys, I can do damage to your opponent. Or in Yu-Gi-Oh, for example, where I've got all my guys, I run over your guys, and I do damage. By giving you, like, objectives to fight over, and that's essentially what these battlefields are, and that's how you gain the points, I think it gives a very satisfying back and forth, like, gameplay style at its core, where you're going to get battlefields. Your strategy might depend on, okay, well, I've got a bunch of little guys, I'm going to put in minimal effort into getting these battlefields. Then my opponent, maybe they have to overcommit to go and get them back from you, and then you can build your strategy around, okay, well, how do I deal with really big guys or really little units or a lot of units? And I think that gives a lot of depth in terms of how you can go about list building and how you can go about playing your game. And I really think that is the strongest element of Riftbound, how they managed to design it that way.
It works well. There's a lot of different strategies you can do, and
Yeah.
the general loop is quite a good one with a clear, defined strategy of your deck.
Yeah, no, just touch on that as well. As you said, the whole, like, when I first looked at Riftbound, when you two were playing it first, and hearing about the game, I'm like, this seems a bit weird to have battlefields and all of this, but to know your win con and like to have so many different strategies that's just based on a simple kind of battlefield system,
Yes,
I think is really good. You can build your deck, but then how you play that deck, each person will play it differently. As you said, you might just want to put a big guy and just try and hold for points, conquer for points. It's actually more tactical than I thought originally going into it.
and we're going to touch on this a little bit later about how one of the potential downfalls, let's say, of the game going into the future, considering how Set 2 is going, will be for alternate win conditions that don't necessarily fit into that gameplay loop of going and capturing battlefields. And we'll talk about this a little bit later, but I think that's definitely the strongest aspect of the game, and I think kind of messing with that system, especially very early on in the game's lifestyle, might be a mistake. But we'll talk about that. Now, on top of the whole battlefield system and how you play, unlike some games, so if you're familiar with Yu-Gi-Oh, Riftbound has an actual resource management system. They borrowed very heavily from Magic in this regard, but they've kind of expanded over it. So, and it's like a halfway house between Magic and Hearthstone, in which every turn you are producing energy or mana or runes, whatever you want to call it, and that's what you're going to be using to pay for your units and for your spells and for your gear and all this kind of stuff. But on top of that, they've bolted on this additional layer of complexity on top of things, where you're not just going to be using your runes to pay for things, you're going to be recycling runes back to the bottom of your deck, and as an additional cost to play probably more expensive cards.
You can play a big card that has a cost to recycle, but then your next turn you're now down those resources. So
Yes.
It works as a two-factor system of allowing you to play big expensive things and giving them a downside, but also making you have to choose, do you go for the big play now, spend a lot of resource, and then you'll be behind again, or you may even an early game card, it may be a very cheap card but has a cost of returning resources. So you might get a very powerful early effect, but it puts you on the back foot.
Yeah. And you're only
It's
generating...
literally costing you. It's literally costing you power. Like, in terms of, like, you, as Charles said, you do this big play. Either at the beginning, you might lose some runes early in your game. Later, you're going to be losing something next turn because you played something, right?
Yeah, you really have to think about your overall game plan and how the cards that you want to play fits into that power curve, because you're only generating 2 additional runes per turn. So if you're sending back 1 rune, 2 runes per turn to pay the additional costs for these cards, what that effectively means is that later on in 2-3 turns, you could be down 4-5 runes from where your opponent might be.
And going on Riftbound, it goes back to your first point about the whole gameplay. It is a very swingy game, I found. Like, you can seem to be so far behind, but if you lose a lot of your resources early to get ahead early, you might just have no resources in the later game to hold your lead, or so it's a big thing to consider.
Oh yeah.
If you spend more, if you recycle more than 2 runes a turn, you're only gaining generally 2 a turn unless you have any other cards that provide you more. So if you spend more than 2, you are just actively reducing your current resource. Rather
Yes.
than if you only maybe recycle 1, then you're reducing yourself, but you're not actually slowing your progress down. So there's a lot of choice of how much you spend to how much you're going to need in following turns.
Yeah. And I think going from what you're saying, Chris, about early game versus late game, it's really evident in how you build your lists and how the different colors of runes, they're like general overplayed gameplay strategies. That has a massive factor in how you build your deck and how you play out your strategy, right? So you might have a very strong early game deck that can get a whole bunch of points really early, but then falters late game. And the idea is that you're supposed to close out the game before you ever even get to late game. But then you might have more tempo based like control style deck that's waiting to get to end game for some really explosive pieces in order to close it out. So I find like in general, broad strokes, there's a really interesting dynamic between all the different colors and the different kinds of play styles and what kinds of decks and strategies they want to promote.
100%.
Yeah, because there is across the different types of deck, they all do have different win cons, different power curves, different play styles completely. As we've got certain colors rely more on being able to generate tokens. Other ones rely on just having lots of large units. But again, they cost you a lot more to play.
Yes.
There is some rush style decks, but again, they can then run out quite quickly if your opponent can block you with combat tricks or just direct damage. So you've got a lot of deck building play space, and you can generally combine a lot of these based on the champion you wish to use.
100%. So, yeah, I think overall, I think Riftbound makes for a pretty engaging game to play. It's by no means a simple game to play. let's put it that way.
The game is, at its core, it is simple. It's once you actually get into the mechanics, which we'll go into probably in COD.
We can actually talk about that now, right? Because it's a bit of a double-edged sword. So go on, Charles.
Realistically, it is quite simple. You play your units at home. Your units can when you play them, they come in exhausted, so they can't be used that turn. Next turn, you can then move them to a battlefield and try and contest it. You can play action cards during battles, and you can play them on your opponent's turn. Some cards you can only play on your turn, though, because they don't have the action keyword.
Yeah, they don't have the keyword.
And like Magic and like a few other games like Yu-Gi-Oh! And stuff like that, they have different, what's known as spell speed. So you have your abilities, which generally are the lowest speed. You have action cards, because they can be played in both yours and your opponent's turn. And then you have the reaction level, which kind of interrupts things and creates what's called a chain. And that's where one card will go on it, the next card will be played, and more reactions can be played and played and played. And then you work through those. And that's where the real complexity gets in, and where sometimes things kind of break down from just being too complicated. But the core is actually quite simple. It's once you start playing
the game.
Once you actually start learning how things work, that's where the real complexity hits. And that's also one of its biggest problems is the interactions.
I can totally agree. It's a very basic game when you're getting into just play like you normally play, but then as soon as you want to start getting into it much more, it starts to get a bit not complex, but like with stuff like this it seems like there's so many timings you need to know. You need to know about how certain things interact and trigger, but it's not plain sight. It's not written how something should be played out, and I'm sure we'll go into that.
Yeah,
that's one of the other things is the language they choose to use for the game. So they've gone with a very natural language. So cards will say when I or when this. They'll use it as if they'll use a very natural language rather than how most games use. They use a very neutral and very like specific. So when a unit or when this unit, and they will refer directly to what the action or the ability is affecting. Where it's when I conquer, or it'll use the term you referring to the player. So it's like instead of putting like when the player or when a player, it will use a when you or when your opponent. And sometimes the language can actually cause a lot of the confusions just because the way they write it.
Yeah, that's very true.
Uh,
And I think so. Basically, what we're touching on is from like a beer and pretzels tabletop game. It's a very simple game in terms of you play, I play, people work it out. But once you get to, let's say you want to go to events, right? And you want to start playing on that level, it becomes a bit of a nightmare in terms of all the interactions and how they actually interact. And you're right, the informal, whatever, however card text we want to call it, it does introduce a lot of ambiguity in terms of how things should work. And I actually have a example for that, right? You have your battlefields. We talked about the battlefields already, and you're attacking the battlefields. And the battlefields each player chooses, and they will work with your particular strategy. And the idea is that you pick battlefields that are advantageous for you. So let's say, for example, we're talking about card text and how they've written it. We've got a battlefield, and I'm going to put it up on the screen, called the Dreaming Tree. And the idea is choose a unit with a spell, draw a card. Fine.
It's just a
Very
friendly
simple.
unit, specifically.
Friendly unit, exactly. Now, the problem with that is that the way that you go about choosing a unit, like choosing a unit isn't this universal term that they use for all cards. So to give an example, I've got them up on the screen here now. We've got Discipline. Give a unit +2 might this turn, and then draw one card. Okay, we're giving a unit. Is that choosing? Alternatively, I've got this one, Emperor's Divide. Move any number of friendly units at a battlefield to their base. Neither of these mention the word choose, and yet the mechanic itself on the Dreaming Tree is saying you have to choose a unit. So I feel like instead of going with this very naturalistic style of writing, they could have tightened it up like a little bit more, and they could have written these cards to say, choose a friendly unit, give it +2 might. Then there's absolutely zero ambiguity as to what the card does.
This is also a thing we've had from other games we've played. They use a lot of keywording and they explain the keywords. Like Fantasy Flight games were actually pretty good for this in things like X-Wing and stuff like that. They had a glossary of terms, and then, if, when, choose, all of that was defined what it actually means in gameplay terms.
Yeah.
Which meant when they brought a new rule in, if it said choose, you knew exactly what it meant because it was already a predefined term. And with the way the languages are done, it's very ambiguous sometimes. Like you say, choose doesn't always say it chooses, but it does still choose.
Yeah, choose doesn't mean what you think it means in some instances. And I think it's further hurt by their rules document, which is it's a thing. How long is it now?
It's 700 or 800 individual points, essentially. It's 30 pages of rules. But the worst thing about that is its layout. And it's laid out quite badly because like you're jumping around sections and going up and down.
Charles, just to correct you, 82 pages of rules.
82 pages.
Wow. How is it 82 pages?
82 pages of rules, and there are 747 individual points that it refers. Now, some of this is dead space because they want to add, but
I don't want to say it's actually bad. This is actually also a good thing because they do actually heavily explain every point of each thing. So, like when it talks about moving, it gives you all of the information about moving in different bullet points. So it's a really good document because it's very in depth.
Yes,
but it's also so long that you go cross-eyed even trying to read it.
Yeah, like me and Chris had a big old, I don't want to say argument, discussion for a solid hour the other day about how a specific interaction works. And I was referring to certain parts of the rules. He was referring to other parts of the rules. And there are arguments.
Neither part referred to each other was the other thing.
It literally came down to the language they're using, if I'm correct. Like the way we're interpreting, like
the actual language.
The language they're writing. And I'm sure if you ask the developers what they mean, they'll go, it does this. Can you not write it like that then? No.
The other thing is, we also, having played several other card games and have pre-existing notations of how similar, or if not exactly the same systems work in other games, you automatically go, well, it must do X because every other game does the same thing in X way. And then you read Riftbound's rules and it doesn't. And you're like, wait, so what? You've written it the same way, but it doesn't work the same.
I'll touch on it now lightly because it kind of comes into this. It's also like we've been playing a lot of set 2. We still use set 1 cards, right? But very recently, it's like they will change the rules or an FAQs of cards. Each set has apparently different ways a card is played because developers just go, cool.
Well,
That
they've
is-
updated their rules between sets is the thing.
You need uniformity, right? If you're going to write a card game and you have to decide this is how my mechanic is going to work,
Yeah.
and then go for every future instance of this mechanic, this is how it's going to work. You don't change it, especially we're only 6 months. No, we're basically 3 months into the game in the West. That's it.
Yeah, yeah.
Just
It's only been available for us for a few months. China's had it about 6 months now.
Yeah.
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 Plus the period before when it was essentially in its beta state. So
Well, I think
Yeah.
they've actually said, I might be incorrect, but I'm sure they basically said, we weren't sure how we wanted this to act in game. So we left it like this to then just change it in set 2. So it's like they released the game not knowing how they want their mechanics to be played.
Mm.
And only in set 2 they've gone, actually, we want it to be played like this.
There was
was
a developer
deflect.
thing, right? Where they said it was
Saw
like
it
the
somewhere.
play testers were playing. There was I can't remember which rule they were referring to, but the play testers were playing a card in one way, but the developers had intended the card to work in another way. And if you have that kind of ambiguity just by reading a card, then
they said in one of their updates about the FAQ for Spiritforged, they actually said one of the new terms, it's not new term, but the ability deflect, which allows you to make your opponent cost more to play spells. The developers didn't agree on how it should work.
Yeah.
Which is why there was a lot of confusion, and they had to release an FAQ about it because they even had to change how certain set 1 cards mechanically worked to allow them to actually interact with the rule.
Yeah.
I just hope going forwards, obviously newer sets, they would obviously you're expecting new mechanics, and I'm just hoping we're not going to keep changing the keywords just to fit in new set, if that makes sense. That will start getting.
Yeah, that's more really what I want them to do going forward. I want them to introduce more uniformity to this. I want them to introduce more keywords that are fixed in the way that they work, and just keep it like that. And also have the keywords be intuitive. The example we always give is quick draw is a mechanic that's now on weapons and items, and the idea is that quick draw allows the item to be played as a reaction. The problem is you hear the term quick draw, and that's not what you think.
You would assume something called quick draw would be when you draw cards, you could play it, but it's not. It's you can play it from your hand, and the rule it actually references inside itself is called the equip keyword.
Yeah.
So it should have been called quick equip instead, which would have made a lot more sense and been more intuitive to a newer player reading a card.
Because ironically, to add on that point, right? I had someone play it and they didn't realize that when you normally play equipment, you have to pay it in your base, pay a power or a mana.
Yeah, you pay a cost.
Pay a cost to attach it to your unit. This is letting you play it as reaction, as you said. But if you read how it actually is in the rules after reading 20 points of text, you realize you don't have to pay the power. But it could just say that on the card.
Yeah.
In brackets, don't pay power cost or equip cost. I'm not trying to make it like more brain dead, but it'll just make it easier for everyone to read.
Going on your point there, Chris. Again, like you say, the way it is written on the card is a very short-handed version of the rule. And actually, to read the whole rule, you have to go and find it in the 80-page rules document, and it explains how it fully works. And it's, couldn't you have just... like you said, you could have written the rule on the card better.
That could have all been summarized as reaction, because that's what it is, and we know what a reaction is. Play this card and equip it to a unit that you control, ignoring
with
its
-1 cost.
Yeah,
with a minus to its cost.
Exactly. That's what it could have been. And
it didn't
mechanically,
need
it does the
an
same.
entire. Yeah, it didn't need a whole new keyword. It could have just been given reaction ability on the card. The way the rules are written for Riftbound are not friendly to newer players. And this is just what we're getting at with the way the rules text is written on cards. Like, they do put abbreviations for a lot of their common rules, and most of them are fine. But this is also potentially an issue between the rules originally written with
Chinese
translation in mind, or were they written simultaneously and then they had to compromise between languages to keep things similar?
If you're trying to judge, you got to read the whole thing like a few times to really get your grasp on the rules and really try and know everything. And I don't know, you need to have
one thing I learned. Sorry to pull you off there. One thing I'd learned the other day, just playing one of the pre-Rift events, was when a combat finishes, all damage everywhere is healed. I just assumed it was units in a fight would heal their damage because they were participating in combat. So it's just like it heals everything everywhere, and it's like that doesn't make any sense. They weren't involved in the combat. Why are they healing at the end of combat? But it's just a general blanket. You do a cleanup step.
Yeah, and it didn't have to be like that at all. They could have just said, "Oh yeah, end of the turn, damage is healed," and then that's it. So that was a choice that the designers made to make it work like that.
Yeah, which does bring in some strategies though. Like you can play specific cards to damage your units at home, do a very simple combat that you know you're going to win, and then it heals those other units. So it does add a layer of strategy, but it's not an intuitive rule system in that way. Like you wouldn't assume people who are not in a fight to not recover after the fight, but they designed it as a blanket, everything recovers.
I wonder if there'll be future
that
cards that they've written that in mind of or something. Like
this is the thing. We know set 3 is in print now, mostly when it comes out in another 3 months' time.
They're going to start showing off set 3, right?
Exactly. We know there is new
Chinese
stuff
release.
coming. And again, with any game, you're always writing 2-3 sets in advance. So you're writing rules for a game that's already been. When those rules come out, the game will be in a completely different state to when you
you're writing a game for rules you're writing rules for a game that doesn't
don't exist.
Yeah. And when they are released, you'll have never been in the situation to play the game with the rules as you intend.
The keywords on cards are very rarely used. So you have things like Yordle and Champion and Demacia and Noxus. And there's very few cards in the game currently that interact with any of that. And it's kind of like a design space that feels like it's missing. But again, that could be very much a set 3 thing that they had a lot of cards in that add more. If you just build a whole deck of Demacia units and equipment, suddenly that deck becomes a lot better because they almost synergize better.
Yep.
Yeah,
so that's what we're talking about future design space and things like that. You build something into a card in set 1 that you maybe don't touch on until set 4. Suddenly, when it comes out in set 4, it's like, big brain. I can now see how this card that came out 2 years ago, which is now terrible, suddenly becomes a great card because it now interacts with the rest of the game. And that's a very tight balance you have to do in development of we know we're going to do something later, but we can't do something with it now.
Right. So so we've been banging on about the rule set for a while. Let's get on to something a bit more positive. And so I think that from because obviously Riot Games and esports, they go together because they basically founded the system, right? And I think from the outset, they said that they wanted to design a competitive game and they wanted to have all the support for that. Now, in my experience, one of the reasons why I started playing Legend of the Five Rings was FFG's OP support, which was amazing. Yeah. Still second to none. I've never been to an event with that kind of support. And it looks like Riot have taken that on board and they're like, okay, we need to run events ourselves, which is what they ended up doing. And we need actual proper solid price support for these to make it so that people want to go. Now, one of the issues in the Yu-Gi-Oh space, for example, is that even if you go and you win a YCS, which is the top of their thing, you win Worlds or whatever, the price support isn't amazing. It's like you'll be winning one of 1,000 Nintendo Switches that you've won 1,000 times before. The prize cards are great. And so the amount of time and dedication and effort that you need to put into the game to get good enough to be able to win one of those events, yeah, it's amazing when you win it and you get all the kudos and you get all of this stuff, but it's not something that you can realistically go and say, oh yeah, it's worthwhile. It's really worthwhile me doing. Whereas I think for Riftbound, I've done a lot in this regard, and I think it's really good what they've done. They've got top of champion metal cards that you can get. They've got alternate artwork cards. They've got all sorts of things.
Yeah, they've done a pretty good, I would say, at the moment, organized play standard, where you're going to get an item for participating, you're going to get an item for doing well based on the size of the event, and then you're going to get more stuff the better you do. They've got also a prize wall system for most of their big run events. So even if you aren't winning your games, you still get tickets, which you can then trade in for more prizes, which means you're always going to come home with something. You're never going to go to an event, lose all your games and be like, wow, that was a waste of money. I got nothing.
I spent £1,000 getting to this place.
Yeah, that's what some game systems are like. Unless you are in the top 16 players out of 1 to 200 players, you go home with nothing. You could have the worst experience of your life. And then you may just turn around and be like, I'm out. I'm just going to sell my collection, not touch it again.
Yeah,
But,
there's
like,
no
if
point in me
I'm
doing
home
this because I'm basically wasting
and-
money to play a bunch of
yeah.
games, which I can do at home.
And unless you're going just because you love the people there and you so love the game, you don't care if you win or lose, which there are people who will. They'll go to events, doesn't matter if they win or lose, they're there to have fun, they're there to see people. But the people who, I have seen this with competitors, and the moment they lose 1 or 2 games and suddenly they can no longer get any of the prizing from the event, they just drop events or they just stop caring about the event because they can no longer achieve anything. And that is
Yeah.
very much a player issue rather than organized play. But they have, Ubisoft and Riot have done a pretty good amount of prize support. And like you said, to get people to not just play one deck and one champion archetype, the best player in, at least in their regional level events, so these are their below their world finals, if you are the best player of a specific legend, you get a metal prize card for that legend. And they are, depending on if there is, say, if there's only 10 regionals in the world, that is a 1 of 10 card in the world. And it gives you an incentive to go, you know what? I'll try a bit of an oddball deck. I'm not going to win the event, but I'm going to still get 5 out of 7 rounds of wins. I'm not going to win, but I'll probably be the best of this guy, and I'll get this very unique item.
Like it sets
what they
the
have,
bar.
it does, yeah. And we had a similar thing. Fantasy Fight Games did a similar thing for Legend of the Five Rings. They had what was called you were Hatamoto, and it was the best player of that faction got an extra bonus prize. Just as, hey, you took this faction, you did really well, you didn't win the event, but you're the best player of that one, bonus prize. And it was a thing to strive for, even if you knew you were good, but you knew, I know I'm not going to win with this specific one. And we've seen it even all of the Chinese regionals and some of the American ones. Legends that people aren't good, they're just like inherently weaker than other ones, but there'll still be like 3 or 4 people playing it, fighting out that best of.
Yeah,
There, Garen.
Garen,
several that people
Garen
in
is it, right?
the
There were what, like 15 people going for that metal Garen.
Wasn't even 15, it was like less than 10. And like you'll still get a few people play it because they're like, I could play out of my mind and I could actually win all my games. We just had it at the last Chinese regional. 2 champions made it to the final, which people didn't expect to get there.
Yeah.
And it's organized play is what keeps people engaged, and they are doing a good job. Their ticket sales, at least for the European side of things, is a bit of a shambles, but the actual level of support is really good.
The demand is there for Riot.
Oh, the demand is there way more.
You know, it obviously means a lot of people want to go and be part of it. But yeah, obviously, as you said, a bit shambles trying to get there and get tickets.
Yeah, trying to get the tickets. I think that's
yeah
issues with they didn't see how big the demand would actually be. So that's a technical thing. But once you're at the event,
sorry, yeah.
Yeah, once you're at the event, the price support is definitely there. Even in a world where you're in an environment where the top, I don't know, third of the player base in a 300-person event could be one deck, not one deck, but one legend. At least it gives you some kind of an incentive to go, you know what, I'm not going to play that legend, or I don't have the money to be able to afford the deck that it requires to play that legend, because if everyone's playing it, those cards are in higher demand. It gives you the ability to go, you know what, I'm going to go there for the metal prize card, and then it makes it worthwhile for me to go.
It changes your entire game plan for the event at that point.
Yeah.
All you are doing is, I just want to go 50-50. Even if I go 50-50, I've got a pretty good shot at being the best of this champion. You suddenly go, okay, I still need to play well, but in matches, okay, this is going to be a really bad match for me. You just don't have to, you go, okay, I can drop this one. I'll lose this match. I'll hopefully get a better match next round. I don't have to stress as much as if you're going there like, you want to get top 16 spot because you want to get the top 16 tries. You've got to, absolutely every game you play, you have to be playing your A game. And when you're playing these best of 3 games, and like we've seen it like in the Chinese region, they're playing like 9 rounds on the first day. Then they're playing another like 5 rounds on the second day. And that's a lot of mental load to take in. And just going back onto you were saying about supply.
Yes.
And the supply and the popularity. I think they were, like Riot and UVS were quite confident in China that they have a big player because they have a humongous league player base there. So they were very confident it will sell. I think they didn't produce as much English stock as they did because they weren't sure how well it would do in the Western market or in the English market, English language market, I should say. So that's where we had a lot of supply issues with set 1, where it came in and went out, and then nobody got a restock. Whereas in China, you could buy product everywhere. It was available consistently. We finally got a restock of set 1. Yeah, people who had cards could get them.
No, I was just saying people who did manage to get any stock set 1, the price of cards were just ridiculous.
Yeah, I opened exactly one booster pack of set 1, and that's the one that came in my Victor
in your starter deck. Yeah.
And that's it. That's all I managed to get my hand on because everywhere I went were basically sold out instantly.
People who, and especially we've seen it in Pokemon, we've seen it in Yu-Gi-Oh! It's slowly moving to other games with the whole scalpers. They will buy every product they can and then they resell it for 2-3 times the cost. And that's bad for players. Great for those people because they make tons of money, but it's bad for the game and players.
Yes.
And when you do have a supply issue, if supply isn't a problem, it doesn't happen because people don't buy it themselves.
Yeah.
It does look like Origins had issues, but Spiritforged is possibly not going to have the same issue. Looks like they have ramped production up a bit.
They say, from what I've read, they've got approximately twice the amount of stock.
Yeah, which
and they'll keep
hopefully means that, going back to Gundam, we had a very similar thing with our first set. It came in, went out of stock pretty quickly. Europe was kind of better than America was for their stock levels, but I think it's more just down to area. Set 2, it went out of stock, but came back in very quickly. It was like the new stock arrived a week afterwards. And then with our latest set 3, you can still go and buy it in most stores. They've got to the point where they've gone, okay, we need to send product to these areas. And it seems to have been stabilized now for us. And hopefully, by the time we get to set 3 and set 4 Riftbound, same thing will happen. You'll be able to go into a store on release day and be like, 1 box, please. And they'll be like, yep, there you go. You can have a box. Do you want a second one?
Well,
and it should be that.
Tied to all of this and tied to the events that they're running, we've been to a couple of pre-Rift events now, which is basically, okay, set 2 is coming out. So you can go to an event, you can get some product early, you can play a little tournament with it. And that seems to be incredibly well stocked from all the events we've been to.
Yeah.
So by now I would have gone to 2. Chris, I think you would have gone to 2 or 3?
2. I'd be 2.
You'll be 2, yeah. Charles would have been to 3 by the time you guys are watching this.
4, no?
4, maybe.
No,
yeah.
No, 3.
And we've seen a lot of new players getting into the game just off the back of that, which is wonderful. But it looks like that they did a real good job of getting that product out there. We went to a pre-Rift event on Sunday. It was over 80 players. And they had packs for everybody.
It was 127 players.
Was it 120?
The end.
Yeah, it was 127.
Wow, okay.
They sold out their entire event.
127 players just for a pre-release event. That's crazy. But they had all the packs for that. And each player gets 5 packs in that box. So everyone got access to product. I've got 5 times the amount of product than I did in set 1 already. And it looks like it's working. And they've taken notice and they really wanted it to be a thing, to be a success. A side note from that, love the pre-Rift event, by the way. I think it's,
we could jump on that.
I think it's great. As a jumping off point for the new set, I think it's awesome. The format of that is they have a selection of 6 legends, and you get mini pre-built decks that come with each of the legends, and you get 1 randomly, and you get 5 packs, and you get to open your packs, which is something that a lot of people were not able to do for Origins because they couldn't get any stock. You open your packs there and then, you build a slightly smaller deck than usual, and then they've got a little tournament that goes with it. And I think as a format, that's something that I didn't expect it to work as well as it did. It almost puts everyone on a level playing field in terms of the resources that they have available in order to play the game. And we saw it. There was a couple of events that happened where just completely new people to the game managed to get top 16, whatever it is. So I think that was, as a product and as a release, I think that was really successful on that part. And I actually think that it's almost the best fun. It's weird. It's almost the best fun that I have had so far with Riftbound, which means that I hope that at some point in the future, they do put rules together for Riftbound Draft and that kind of thing, where you get that kind of experience, because I think the game kind of works in that setting.
you can just do draft. Like if between say 4 of you, you bought a box, you split
Yeah.
it 4 ways, and you get 6 packs each, and you just use the same deck building rules they use for the pre-rift, and you can do draft. I think one of the big issues with a lot of games though is you kind of need some cards from the previous set to make certain things work, because it is designed to build on rather than.
Well, I think that's why the structure deck.
Yeah, that's why having that little 15 card like structure, you go, okay, I've got at least a base of a deck, I can then build onto it.
Yeah.
I don't know if it does their sets differently, where a set is more of a self-contained. Things in this are basically for these archetypes. That's the problem when you have a collectible card game or a trading card game. The cards generally for that set are all part of that set. But to make a good deck, you kind of need some other stuff.
Yeah,
you can make functional decks, but you are very much at the mercy of did you draw anything that works together?
Yeah.
And I've had that in 2 of the events I've been to. Once I had quite a good set of draws, which actually made quite a well-functioning deck, and it had the combos in it. And my other 2 events, I've had not as good, and oh man, I really could have done with an X card that I had in the other one, and things like that. And you're just like, can this work? And then other players have pulled basically an entire deck from their booster packs, and that's just the luck of the draw.
Yeah, that is luck of the draw.
Like you said, it's an exciting thing. You open your packs, go, what did I get? What can I build?
Going to our event we went to, I came home thinking, okay, I had a great time, all of that. I now want to build this little mini deck I built, but build it like
properly.
as a full, like a proper deck. It gets the juices flowing, let's say.
Yeah.
Gives you that taste to go, okay, cool. And again, you might play something you never thought you might play. You might not even, you might look at it and go, yeah, I don't want to play this. You get it in the event, you play it, and you go, actually, that's quite a bit of good fun.
And a lot of, sorry, it just dawned on me. A lot of players are basically reading most of those cards for the first time. Ever. Yeah. Even if you play like a lot online or whatever, you're going to be building optimized decks. You're only really going to be looking at 10% of the actual card pool. Having to build a deck on the fly with the resources that you have, with cards that you basically wouldn't play in any other situation, and try and come up with different strategies and play styles, like as it comes. I think that was really exciting for me.
There was a lot of cards that
really good new players
don't play online. You might just look at it and go, yeah, that's not a great card. And they were playing it on me, and I'm just like, whoa, okay, that's a thing apparently.
Like in this situation where there isn't a lot of kill,
So,
it's not a good card unless it's the only card you have.
Yeah, legitimately, but like the play, because you can use more than your two colors, so you just had the most rackiest decks getting built. It was great, actually great.
Jax gets really good when you get to splash purple.
Apparently, Jax is good when you put a bit of purple in there. Huh? Just saying. The only thing I'm not a fan of, but it's not so much like anyone's fault. Even though Riftbound is coming out Friday, I don't know. Well, in February, we're about approaching it. It feels like we've been playing it for so long that I'm ready for set 3 because of how they've done the releases. Maybe we've overplayed. I'm not sure.
So this comes down to you're right. This comes down to sets 1, 2, and 3. China are going to be getting first. But the thing is, as players are on the internet, as soon as a card comes out, you want to play with it, you want to test it, you want to do all this stuff. And we have done we played a lot of Spiritforged since it came out in China. We proxied it, we've played it online, we've done all this stuff. Now, as of set 4, that shouldn't be a problem because they are aligning release dates, so it'll be global.
I was just touching on that. It's like that's what's influenced the card cost market, because with Win in China, suddenly those cards price spikes up because that's the winning deck. Once we get to set 4, nobody's ahead of anybody. Card prices will be a bit more stable because everyone's going to be going, this card worth it. Maybe worth $5.
To give an example,
to
give an example, I want to play Azir like real bad in Spiritforged. And like last weekend, as of the time of us recording this, there was an Azir player who went like second place at a pretty large regional event. And I'm like, I really don't want him to win because it's going to push the cost up of those cards when they come out like next week. That's really high.
When they made a good change really quickly on the whole terms, you can use Chinese cards in English decks. I think they made that change just so cards would come down generally.
So we are having with the Bologna Spiritforged regional. The Spiritforged comes out exactly 7 days before, so it is legal. But it depends if you can get your hands on it to go to Bologna.
Exactly.
Um,
Exactly. And that's the main thing. If we never managed to get tickets to Bologna, we tried.
we tried, but yeah.
We tried, but when
like
it
you're saying,
crashed.
you were
Right.
going back to the pricing thing. You were saying, oh, having Chinese cards should bring the price down. Actually, did is just increase the cost of Chinese. English cards came down slightly, but Chinese cards just got massively more expensive because everyone started buying them. Because I'll buy these while they're cheap, and suddenly their prices shot back up
This is
to
the problem.
nearly the same level as English cards.
Going back to Bologna, right? We were all trying to get tickets. I'm like buzzing. At the same point, I was almost like, I don't want to get a ticket. Like, I'll buy one, but I don't want to get the chance to buy one because I'm like, I'm gonna turn up with a set one deck that I don't
'cause we
really
can't
want
get
to
the
play.
product.
Because you can't get product because going off set one there was no product. And look, I still would like to go and have fun, all of that. You are investing a lot of money to go to something you don't even want to play, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
There was that whole, but it looks like they've got a lot more regionals. They've really like their roadmap.
Their communication from UVS Riot has been great. They've done the whole roadmap thing, saying these are when the regionals are. Because as far as we knew for Europe, until they put this up, there was going to be one regional in Bologna, and it was like, okay, are we going to get any more in Europe? And then suddenly, like, okay, and there's going to be 3 more, and then America's got again 4 regionals. So we are being nearly equally represented. I think the biggest problem with that is it's the finding a partner to run the event. I'm pretty sure it's UVS and somebody else running it in Europe, and they already have a network of venues and staff. Yeah, an event in the UK would be fantastic. It would be great for us, but
we're ready, Riot. When you're ready,
yeah,
we're here.
When you're ready,
there are. I think there's a big event up in Birmingham, like a card show or something, and there's going to be a Riftbound event there, but it's not going to be a regional or anything like that. But there's going to be some kind of Riftbound event, but I don't think that's being run.
If you're getting 120 so for pre-Rift, and I know a lot of other stores were running at events of the same weekend, right?
Yeah,
shows you so many
store me and James went to yesterday. They ran an event Saturday, an event Sunday, and an event Monday. They ran 3 pre-Rift events.
So I think there was one in Steve Village on the same day of Sunday, actually, or Saturday maybe. Had quite a few. So yeah, no, there's obviously demand. And for pros to Riot, when they have had mistakes or like supply issues and that, they have owned up to it and tried to address it in the future.
Yeah, they did address an issue because they had an issue where packs didn't have the correct number of card rarities in them, and they have gone, we're sorry, there was a production issue. You can claim X number of failed packets. So they are actually going, yeah, we have made a mistake. We'll fix it. There was an issue with card edging. So like the cards weren't cut very well, and they did say it's a problem. It'll be fixed. And when they did the reprint of set 1, it was fixed. All the cards were great.
Yeah.
So they are
they're
actively
doing better.
listening.
They're learning. They are learning.
Fixing issues. Though the card packing issue has still happened in set 2, which is an annoyance. But when you're trying to make as much product as you can, it can happen.
Yeah, so I think overall, let's give our final statement on Riftbound. We've been speaking for an hour now, and I expected this to be like a 20-minute video, and it's turned into an hour-long marathon like podcast. So
we should do it every set.
Every set, yeah. Chris, do you want to start?
Preset, end set. There you go.
Yeah. Do you want to start, Chris? What were your overall thoughts about Riftbound? We've been playing it. We're going to continue playing it. What do you think?
It's the first card game or TCG, how you want to put it, in a long time that I'm really excited to play. I'm loving. I think mechanically the game is really solid. I know we spoke about rule issues and that, but I think it's more brushing up issues more than like the core mechanics. No, I really like it. I love the whole IP of it, obviously coming from League. I think it has the competitive side to it. You could play with just your friends. So yeah, no, I'm really loving it. Just hope.
Good stuff. Charles?
Yeah, I'm enjoying Riftbound. I think the rules could have a lot of work done to them to make them less convoluted. Like I said, I'm treating this as my second game. I'm not investing in it as much as I have invested in Gundam because I like League, I like Gundam. I find the game a lot, I say simpler, but more straightforward, and it's a very different game to how it plays. Yeah. And I'm enjoying playing Riftbound. Like, it's captured the League aesthetic in the game, and it does feel a bit like a game of League. We haven't actually really tried the multiplayer formats yet, but that does sound fun.
So it's been designed for up to 2v2, right?
Yeah, but yeah, you can do a 3-player, 4-player, or a 2v2, and the cards are already designed that way. But I am enjoying it. I do think as they go on, things should get tightened up, hopefully, and it will get better. But any new game that comes out, there's always issues. No game is ever perfect.
Yeah.
But it's a good game, and it's looking to go strong.
Yes. And for me, yeah, they are still learning. There have been, still are, in some cases, teething problems. I do think that, yeah, so like I only really play like one card game at any one time. I can't maintain multiple card games because it's a nightmare to do. So Riftbound is going to be that card game for me for the foreseeable future, at least, let's say. And I really do hope that the devs do look at things like the card text, how they write their cards, look at things like keywords, look at the rules. We were just speaking about before this, actually, how it would be a really good thing for their rules document, instead of being like an 80 whatever page PDF, slap it up on their website, have it searchable, and make it so that it's an easier resource.
Yeah, hyperlinks, searchability.
I think they should have an official app, in my opinion, as well.
Yeah, exactly. So
somewhere has all the cards, like a glossary of this does this, and
and all the rulings associated with those cards. Because at the moment, what you've got,
touching on that, they do have a website which runs their organized play and their card database, and it's okay. But yeah, having that in an app format would be so much more useful.
Yeah,
because like when you're in like a real event, looking for a rule that I know we've touched on, 700 page, well, not 700 points, whatever. If you could click on a card and it has quick draw, I could click quick draw. It comes up with what quick draw does and how it stuff like that. I think that will also benefit a lot.
Yeah. But these are things that they can do. It's not something that's
100%.
outside the scope.
This is just 100%. As I said, I want to see the game succeed even more. I want it to more players to get in it.
Yes, that's it. Yeah, so I think I'm real positive about the game. Right, I know I'm tiny and you guys aren't necessarily watching this. Give me Malzahar. I want Malzahar as a legend. Come on.
And if you're not busy, fresh would be nice.
And if you're busy, fresh
not too busy.
Charles, who do you want?
We know we're getting Seraphine coming out, but you're
fine. Your league main is like Leona, which already exists. Seraphine's coming out, which already exists. Lux is already there, so you're covered.
You're done. By set 4, you're done, man.
They have so much play space because they have 250 champions or something ridiculous in league.
More probably.
They're never going to run out of content for this game for a good long time.
No, they could do 10 sets or 12 sets or something and still have enough champions.
It's going to be halfway through the champion pool, But yeah, it's hoping for the future of it. Hopefully they'll release more stuff. They'll tighten up the rules a little bit and the interactions. And it's best of luck to them.
That's it, right? That's it. Good luck to you guys. But yeah, for us, that's been a bit of a marathon session. I think we will wrap up there. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Thank you, Charles. Thank you, Chris, for coming on.
Thank you.
Good stuff. And yeah, we will be, as of the time of us recording this, we'll be cracking open an entire case of Spiritforged, like, within the week. So maybe I'll put that up. That'll be fun. I want to look at the pull ratios of that case to see how it goes. Yeah. But anyway, that's it from us for today. Thank you very much for watching. As always, this has been Off Meta Musings. I've been Itan. That's been Charles over that shoulder.
Hello. Thank you.
Hello. Goodbye. That's been Chris. Maybe over that one. Who knows?
Yep. Peace out.
See you guys later.